Now, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria up to this moment. Intervening to tackling the inflationary pressure on cost of food items is expedient, but what are the matters on ground? Abdul Salam Jibril has a background report as a prompt for our conversation.
Have you been to some of the major markets across the country lately? If you have, you may have observed the cost of foodstuffs in particular witnessing an astronomical increase. In many parts of the country, the price of bags of locally produced rice has risen to about 33,000 naira to 35,000 naira. Beans, which has remained a staple food in the country, reports say has risen by about 62%. Tomatoes have become untouchable, so to speak, and the price hike has also affected basic household items such as noodles, spaghetti, eggs, and groundnut oil, among others. Available data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the cost of food in Nigeria increased by 22.28% in May of 2021 over the same month in the previous year. Some experts have attributed the soaring cost of food items to the several challenges facing the farming communities and agriculture business generally, with the attendant COVID-19 lockdown outlook. Different states and administrations are voicing out on the present status and its effects on the people.
We're all very depressed, sad that it has gotten to a point where we're no longer allowed to live our normal lives by bandits, but we have to try our very best not to make them succeed in forcing us to change our ways of life. They started by displacing farmers on their farmlands. Next, they moved to burning farms.
No doubt, insecurity has been given off as a recent major factor to the rising food cost in the country. However, other factors in the past that have contributed significantly to the rise and fall on food inflation in the country are lack of secured post-harvest food crops, unfair and irregular pricing, the low application of science and technology in production and distribution of food items, poor storage, and even waste and losses experienced alongside high cost of transportation. What is being done to tackle this? So in the short term, what measures are in place towards cushioning the effect of the rising prices on Nigerians expedient as we speak? Where are the low-hanging fruits to cushion? These are just some of the issues that guests on the program will speak to in a moment.
All right, thank you very much for that backgrounder. We have guests already with us in the studios to discuss this subject matter, plus another regular guest who will be joining us via Zoom. Let's actually begin by introducing him. He's the National President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim. Pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and here also in the Abuja studios, we'd like to welcome Dr. Samuel Negedu, who is National Coordinator of the Agricultural Foundation of Nigeria. Dr. Negedu, quite a while. Pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. And with us in the studio here is a development economist and a farmer, Dr. Emeka Okengu. Dr. Okengu, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Pleasure. It's always a privilege to be here. Good morning, Nigeria.
And we also have Abuja Oladutu, Senior Manager, Nigeria Commodity Prices with the Commodity Exchange Market. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, gentlemen, pleasure to have you all with us. Let's begin with Kabir Ibrahim, who is the president of AFAN. He is with us via Zoom from Katsina. The signals are pretty clear at the moment. Architect Kabiru, I wouldn't know whether you are feeling the impact, but I'm sure consumers of your produce are all grumbling at this moment as to what is happening to food prices. And this is at a time when we haven't had any natural disasters such as we had last year or on some other occasions in the past, such as floods, famine arising from desertification or drought, and so on and so forth. You go to the market, and I'm sure perhaps you know this, and the prices are just draining our pockets. What is happening?
Well, there are many reasons why you are experiencing what you are experiencing. Even the market, I mean, the farmers also feel the same because we buy from the same market. First of all, we must look at the purchasing power of the Naira. You see, the Naira has been devalued such that the produce we sell will have to be in tandem with the value that we get. Then there is the cost of inputs in production. There is also the cost of transportation from the place we produce to the market. There are also activities of some people who are termed or referred to as prime anchors, who participate in the Anchor Borrower program as prime anchors. What we have discovered, and I hope that the CBN will take this from me, some of them take money from CBN in billions, and instead of getting out growers, making the farmers grow for them, they go to the market and buy, especially paddy and even maize. They buy and they have a very good contract price with the CBN because when they pay in kind, they now, for instance, they will buy paddy at 12 Naira, 13 Naira, because the CBN allows them to give it to them at 16 Naira. Therefore, that, whatever it is whatever is available, once it's below 16 Naira, they will buy it. And the market, you and I will have to buy at least beyond what they are ordinarily selling in the market. Again, you look at scarcity because our people cannot go to their farms. So production is not optimal. So many of our farmers cannot go to their farms due to insecurity. Therefore, the production is not at its best. We must bear that in mind. But think again of certain components like in bread making. We import most of the wheat or flour, and I mean to make flour. So we buy it with the current exchange rate. Therefore, bread is costly. In fact, you see the Bakers Association are going on strike. They are saying they want to increase the price at of bread at 30%. That kind of thing. So there are many things that cause this. If you take poultry, for instance, the farm gate price of egg is astronomical too, because the day-old chicks are costly and the feed is costly. There are many reasons why we are having what we are having. Thank God. Well, I hope that 2021 will be a bumper. We will get a bumper harvest, and farmers will abide by the NIMET advice, so that this thing does not escalate or exacerbate, through the 2021 and also 2022. There are many things that we have to do. One, we have to show up the Naira. Two, we must ensure that there is security. Three, we must look at the issue of transportation and the issue of these prime anchors. The CBN is doing a good job, but some people are abusing the privilege, and I hope that the CBN will look at this. We'll see exactly what I'm saying. I will give you a practical example. Recently, there was a maize pyramid in Katsina. All the local governments from Musawa to all of the northern part of Katsina State, including Katsina Central, and all the local governments in Daura Emirate, they are not corn country. But we had the maize pyramid in metropolitan Katsina. The question I would like to ask is, those pyramids, the maize that was used in making the pyramids, did it belong to the farmers or to the CBN? If it belongs to the CBN, why is it not in the market to cushion the prices in the market? That kind of thing should be looked upon, because there are many, many, many cross-cutting issues that will make us uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable we are, the more the insecurity, because hunger is, in fact, is the feeding, is the feedlot of insurgency or banditry or kidnapping and all that. So we must be very careful. I hope for now you are satisfied with what I had to say.
Yes, thank you indeed for your opening remarks. I'll ask the next question based on the last thing you said concerning the maize pyramid in Katsina. And I will ask my question to Dr. Samuel Negedu, who had been at the center of agricultural shows in Nigeria. So we are very close to farmers. Each time farmers converge on that agricultural show, we had always experienced what I call bumper harvest in terms of the volume of food production in Nigeria. Architect Kabir Ibrahim just mentioned that we've had maize pyramid in Katsina. We've also had other pyramids, so to speak, in some other parts of another Nigeria, yet we're not feeling that impact in terms of food supply. So what are your own reasons for the escalating prices of food in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigerians, for being there for us. I want to appreciate the contributions of the president of AFAN. He hit a lot of very, very sensitive areas. Secondly, I want us to collectively appreciate the Nigerian small-scale farmers who have to produce, and we are lucky to have what they need to sell to the local markets to be able to meet their other economic needs. If not, we could have been a worse mess than we are now. We all are far from the realities in terms of, one, nobody is telling us the truth about the cost of production occasioned by these changes in exchange rate. The labor you engage on the farm has to live within the fabric of the correct situations, to buy fuel, to be able to transport himself to your farm, and so on. So, if at the village community you were paying 1 Naira or 1,000 Naira for a few hours, now you pay 2,000 Naira. If it took him a cost of maybe 50 Naira to get to your farm before, he's paying about 200 Naira to get to your farm. If you had to have a breakfast in your farm, you either provide it or you make up for it. All these things are costs of production. Nobody is worried. There is no newspaper in Nigeria that is saying it costs X to produce a kilo of maize or rice and so on. That is one. So the cost of production is high. Credit cost is higher than before. Then the challenges are there. But I want to tell Nigerians that despite the challenges, the farmers have no option. They are even ready to die on their farms. And that is why they are being arrested and taken into captivity by these bandits. They are still ready to, but the cost of production is not there. We also don't have a fallback situation. Our strategic reserves are empty. So, the government has no fallback situation. We have a lot of storage capacity in Nigeria to store all this. I'm happy that we had something at the beginning of the year 2020, and it helped a lot. But where are we now? Again, the state governments are not showing concern as much as the federal government. If the states are as serious as the federal government is to this current situation, then I think we will have a future and we'll get out of the woods. If you are careful to mention states that have very aggressive agricultural programs now, you will not make a count of 10 in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Can we continue that way? So we are not living within the realities of the moment. And lastly, I will tell you, there is always this cyclic issue in terms of food. The farmers are sensitive to their economic needs. If they have bumper harvest this year and the prices drop, they shift base. So you had a good year for cassava and people were not going for it. All of a sudden, everybody is going for cassava. You will find out that this year, more people will be planting cassava. More people will go to the farm to plant rice, so that there will be more production, despite the biting cost. But I'll tell you that cassava cuttings has become gold all of a sudden in Nigeria. That you get a bundle of 50 sticks is costing a minimum of 1,000 naira. So let us go back to the basics. One, the states have to be more concerned. Let us build up our reserves so that we have fallback situation. And let us live within the realities of the moment. The inputs are very, very expensive. Livestock, crops, fishery, they are very, very expensive, occasioned by costs of the exchange. The Naira cannot give you the ingredients you need to produce your feed. And so these costs are as realistic as we are. We are not going to return to gari of 20 naira per mudu. It may stay at, if we are lucky, at the 50 or 60 that it is now.
Sorry?
50
per
60
mudu.
Per mudu.
No, I don't think so. I don't know which price.
Wait.
I don't know which price you are quoting.
It depends. That is the lowest. They are quality-wise.
Yes.
They are quality-wise. Gari is between 50 and 80 in Abuja.
No.
Is it 80 naira or 800 naira?
800 naira, forgive me, my brother.
That's now you have you have added the critical zero.
Yes. So it will not go below that 500 naira or 800 for the premium one. The rice that was the oh God type of rice that you shout when you eat is not coming down. You are buying it now at a cost that even the common village person is envious. So the prices will not come down. But let governments in the states be more focused about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Samuel Negedo, for your incisive opening salvo. Just before we bring in Dr. Emeka Okengo, we're talking about prices of food and therefore commodities. Let's get Abiodun Oladotun of the Commodities Exchange to give us an insight into what is happening. Why are we having, this is not price fluctuation. Fluctuation will mean it goes up, it comes down, but it just looks like the arrow is pointing north, as the saying goes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the issue of price oscillation is a vicious cycle, and it is particularly interesting because this time around the prices appears to just be going northward. It's not coming down at all. What are the factors that can be adduced, or factors that are responsible for this price inflation? We should have at the back of our minds that agricultural production has a component of foreign exchange, especially as other earlier speakers that spoke earlier mentioned, the issue of inputs, the issue of fertilizers, the issue of agrochemicals, herbicides, pesticides. If you now juxtapose this with the devaluation of the Naira, the official rate, the NAFES, at the NAFES window, the rate now is about 410, but you and I know that to be able to source this foreign exchange, you need to patronize the parallel market, which is hovering around 500 Naira. So this component will definitely impact on prices of this food. Before now, the foreign exchange rate is not as high as this. So like Dr. Samuel Negudu mentioned, we will not expect the prices to drop lower than expected. Apart from this component, the foreign exchange component, earlier speakers mentioned also the issue of insecurity. Yes, we have a good arable land. We have more than 34 million hectares of arable land in Nigeria, which means that we have the space to provide arable crops. But unfortunately, when people are not protected, or they feel a sense of insecurity as a result of banditry, as a result of insurgency, the production is obviously going to be negatively impacted. So this very point is very crucial. Then also, we should begin to talk about the issue of good agricultural management, and that has got a bearing with the extension agency, the extension services. How relevant are they in educating the farmers on how best they can improve and obtain optimum yield on their farms, in terms of the right source of input, in terms of the spacing, in terms of the timing of planting and harvesting and all of that. So these factors are very, very germane as regards to the impact on the prices of agricultural food going up.
All right, thank you. All the guests who have spoken really pointed to the fact that it does appear that there is no remedy to this presently. But let's bring in Dr. Kingu, who had once blamed the rising cost of food items in Nigeria to the inability of the country to have adequate and advanced facilities for storage. Does this still suffice, or could you just lead us into the economics of today's rising cost in food items?
Thank you very much. There's a very popular African saying that a war that gives a signal is not supposed to eat fruits or eat heads. But this appears to be a war that actually written a memo, written a report, written an advance, and it is consuming people. What do I mean by this? It's actually indeed sad and deeply troubling that we are all here seated talking about outputs coming from rate-based system of agriculture. Because everything we have talked about is aggregated, okay, against the rate-based system of agriculture in this day and time of climate change. In this day and time where people do not even have access to these farms. In this day and time where you need to be on a suicide mission to want to go into your farm and to a land that is already, challenged by climatic conditions. It is indeed a paradox that a country that has 24 biotech resource centers, 24 and counting, about 41 grazing reserves, 14 multiplication centers, we don't have any, not one, agricultural production system that is technology supported, that is not at the research level. In your intro, everything you showed is not food. It is food input. Everything you showed in your intro. And I take a little example of just common yam. Apart from the one that you eat, you get one of the best grade pharmaceutical, grade starches from yam. Okay? You get one of the best alcohols, organic, from corn. And you're talking about a country that has a storage facility of 1.2 million metric tons. And we are talking about people who are going to the farm with hoe and knives. So, you see, if we want to be discussing food production and food security, we must be able to juxtapose it well. I wasn't only talking about storage. I've always said to you that we are the only country in the world that has remained frozen in the pre-colonial times in the way we do food production. And every day we are very happy to announce that we have the biggest population and the biggest market in the whole of Black Africa. Every other country I know of, and I'm talking about Africa here, has gone the way of technology-supported food production systems. The tomato you saw does not need to be planted on a farm. Does not need to be planted on a farm. Ditto for every other thing that you have listed there as what is our major problem in Nigeria. So I think it's for us to be able to rethink this strategy, rethink what we are not doing well, rethink what the Ministry of Agriculture should have been doing that they are not doing. Okay, rethink, like my elder brother had said, the role of the state governments who actually own this land, who have access to this land. Rethink these 86 million hectares of land that we claim that we have as arable land. Who has mapped it? Where is it? Has it been delineated? If you go to a place like the Netherlands, as small as they are, there is no place you don't see a clear sign of delineation, even if that land is not in use. What is the relationship between our water resources? We have more than 100 dams. Oga mentioned fish. How many of those dams are producing fish? How many of them are used for irrigation? So if we are going to be talking about the rising cost of food, why wouldn't food costs rise? This is not the season. Whatever, anything that gets out of season, gets scarce, and the prices will rise. Now, when you now juxtapose it against probably what you now call your socio-economic realities, which is of course now the cost of funds, Oga Kingsley was talking about pear and watermelons. Where are you producing watermelons? If you are producing watermelons in greenhouses, you would have your watermelons at 200 naira. Ditto for every other thing that is going out of stock now. But when, again, you have them come back into the market, you will now start remembering where you are buying a basket of tomato for 2,000 naira. And trust me, where is even worse is that all these things that we're calling foods that we're struggling is going out of, is all perishable. We don't even have one storage. We don't even have, okay, even if we're not storing them, how can we even turn them into, fluxes? How can turn them, be able to now freeze them, okay, or turn them into puree or something, or paste. So point I'm trying to make, gentlemen, is the only issues we have in Nigeria is that we're not thinking it through. A newspaper called me to say to me, what about the poor people? Okay, how are they going to survive? I say, when you have a social security system, the first thing that social security system does is that everybody has access to food. And this is where you now have what they call food stamps. This is where you now have what they call soup kitchens. Okay, so if we have enough production, if we were producing, and please let us remove this thing from farm and please place it at productivity, at production. Okay, let us remove these things from farming to food production. And please, gentlemen, they are not the same thing. I want to rest, at least for now.
Well, the subtext of what you've said is understandable, but clarify it for our viewers. Okay. Furthermore, because when you say, look, there's a difference, a big difference, of course, between farming and food production, what do you have in mind?
You can farm and you don't have any outputs. But the moment you have something that is technology driven, you are very, very certain of your numbers. Okay, and I give you a very typical example, with the greenhouse culture. Now, if you go to a place like Spain, all right, Spain does over 86% of its food production using these greenhouses. And do you know what happens at the end of, you have a place, they call Ibiza in Spain. It runs for about 100 kilometers of greenhouses. And at the end of that stretch is you now start having very big processing mills that are all integrated. And every day you're rushing to the market, I mean, somebody, my wife just said, oh, can I help her buy tomato? And for crying out loud, I wish I didn't. Because by the time I went to buy the thing, for the first time in my life, I was haggling. The person said 3,500. And I looked at myself, I said, am I really the one, pricing this? And when I came back and she saw the look on my face, she just started laughing. He said, this is for you to see what it is we see. A small basket of tomato for 3,000 naira. So sometimes when we go to drop this little battery thing, we drop on the table for madam. The pressure is not even on us who are bringing the money. The pressure is actually more on those who are managing it. But let me not digress any further. If we had, like I said, we have 24 bioresources centers in Nigeria that can be able to warehouse technology supported, food production systems. But do you know what? They are not under the Ministry of Agriculture. They are under the Ministry of Science and Technology. What are the synergies between these two ministries?
Yes, and we have this gamma radiation facility at Sheda, which has not been put into use.
If you go there, you will cry, Kieran.
The farmers are not aware of it.
The reptiles, I've gone there. You can't even enter into where that machine is. The place is overgrown. And point I'm trying to make is that it is quite painful that in this day and time where we have all these things set up. It's not as if we don't have these facilities. There is a facility in Oji River. It's been there since 1984 for making of leather. The day I went into that facility, I wept. There is nothing we haven't done to say to the ministry, let us be able to return this thing back into life. You cannot tie it to livestock production. They are not even responding.
Okay. Well, Dr. Meka Okengu, thank you very much for your points. Let's go back again via Zoom to Katsina, where the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria is still with us, Architect Kabir Ibrahim. If we can see him right there on the screen now, if it's right. Architect Kabir Ibrahim, I know you're also very passionate about this, but there are a number of issues on the table. In addition, of course, to the points you earlier highlighted, Dr. Negedu says, look, how do we get state governments to be more enthusiastic about agriculture? That agriculture is now also being redefined for purpose of our conversation this morning by Dr. Meka Okengu to say, look, in a sense, look, how do we get out of our subsistence, if not otherwise primitive farming practices, and get into real food production, so that the kind of inflationary pressures we are seeing now on food prices can be mitigated through, of course, increased utilization of storage system, that's to say the strategic reserve, and then the commodity exchange.
The agriculture in Nigeria takes place principally in the states. And you're right, some of the state governors are not proactive in production because they are not sustainably supporting the farmers. that I think should be optimized. The source of insecurity, I said, is really dependent on poverty or the availability of food. And there's a serious nexus between that insecurity and food security. Now, for Nigeria to really be self-sufficient in food, there are many factors have to come in. One of which is we should be able to produce all year round. We should be able to utilize the waters that we have and even groundwater. I don't like giving examples of the first world and all that. Let us look at the situation that is prevalent now in Nigeria. The situation had always been that Nigeria had food and it was feeding its neighbors. I live in Katsina, and I know for a fact that before the closure of the border, the bulk of the trucks carrying food items from Dawano market passed through Katsina to Niger Republic. And even the corridor up to northern Ghana had always been open. Nigeria used to feed all these places. But, you know, COVID came and everybody was on their own. The countries did not have the opportunity to buy from anywhere or to take their food anywhere because nobody was sure. Every action that we took was correct because nobody alive had witnessed that thing. But essentially, I think what we must do in Nigeria is that we should be our brother's keeper. We must look upon food as the engine room of growth. Because, you know, if you are hungry, you cannot, there is no way you can think outside the box. You cannot think of going to the moon or designing anything that is of significance in the world. So we must all work together to make food available and affordable. That is to say, we must try to become food secure. And, you know, we must also try to meet up all the 17 SDGs that are, you know, somebody had been talking about climate change, good education, education for even women, the cities that are sustainable and things like that. We must be able to look upon all those for us to be able to plan. And then again, somebody had mentioned also the issue of the arable land that we claim to have. We must be able to map it, do soil investigation and know what our soils are deficient in, and then have crop-specific fertilizers and soil-specific fertilizers to be able to really work and the land to provide food for Nigeria. And once there is availability, these things are bound to come down. We are happy also that a number of entrepreneurs are now getting into the input business. Dangote has just rolled out the fertilizer from their plant, and they are set to be able to produce about 3 million metric tons. And so fertilizer will readily be available like Coca-Cola in Nigeria. And in time, we might be able to get it to come down. And when it comes down, it will be inversely proportional to the cost of whatever we produce using those set inputs. So there are many, many things we have to work on. The fact that some of these things are facilities are in science and tech, environment, trade and investment, some of the NDAs in agriculture, like the seed, the National Seed, Agricultural Seed Council and all that. This is how institutions work. We must be able to work together. All the cross-cutting issues should be, harmonized. Transportation should be harmonized. We must be able to do rural feeder roads, proper rural feeder roads, so that if I produce anything in the crannies of, let's say, my local government, it is able to come to the local government or to the market at a very reasonable price and with the utmost speed, so that the food becomes available to people. And then the distinction between food production and farming is also very germane. we must be able to add value to what we produce, because once we sell what we produce in their primary form, we tend not to get good value. So the lethargy sets in, because people till their lands, and they end up very poor. And in fact, there is a notion that most farmers are really poor in this country. Whereas, in the first world, where a lot of mention is made of, the farmers are the rich people. Farmers go to their farms on helicopters. They have helipads in their farms. I know farmers in the south of France who told me that they had a joint ownership of a tractor, 200 horsepower with GPS, and it was working on their land for 1,050 hectares altogether. And they had one farm had only 3 workers, the plant operators and the people who do the marketing of the produce, and the owners just see money in their accounts. That we should get to that, and that is when we will be able to really play along. And now the opportunity of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is also very encouraging, because we should be able to produce as optimally as we can, because we have the market in Africa. When we try to take anything to Europe and all that, we have a lot of rejects, because there are many things that are not working here. We are not doing the good agricultural practice. We are still dependent on chemical fertilizer, pesticides, and all that, whereas the world is tending towards everything organic. If you go to some restaurants in the United States, you have a choice. You go to organic food restaurants, and they are very popular. So the whole world is turning into living naturally. So these things, and a myriad of them, constitute the impediments for productivity and food security. So I sympathize with people who tend to think that the first world is doing well and we are not doing anything. But I want to also tell them that the so-called first world was where we are at some point. 150 years ago, the United States was exactly like Nigeria. 70% of the population were into agriculture. Today, less than 3%, about 2% are in agricultural production because of mechanization. We are making efforts to do mechanization. We should walk the talk. We have been talking about importing farm equipment, including combined harvesters, tractors, and all that from Brazil with a loan that is coming in kind. We have been talking about it since 2017. Up to now, it has not been actualized. Here, we have incubation centers in the Ministry of Science and Technology. We have broken down tractors and other equipment that are lying around and are rusting. Those should be put together and brought so that they are all repaired, so that we boost our mechanization. When we are able to import anything from anywhere, we should be able to model that and be able to do the implements and all that here until the time when we will be able to produce our own equipment. Mechanization is very, very important to agriculture. Machine power should replace human power to be able to attain that level that we see in other places. So there are many, many things.
All right. Architect Kabiru, thanks a lot for your comments. We're going to return to you in the course of the conversation. Dr. Negedu, I mean, you raised the equally important point about why state governments should get more interested in agriculture. Let's look at whichever aspect of it. Fisheries, for instance. There are, I don't know how many dams, about 100 dams that Dr. Okengu was mentioning. 300. We have the Honorable Minister of Water Resources as our guest on Good Morning Nigeria from time to time. And he says, look, the business of the federal government is to provide bulk water. So it is then the responsibility of the subnational entities to draw from that for various purposes, agriculture, industrial, and otherwise. Fisheries, for instance. Now we're complaining about the high cost of fish. Why is it challenging, for instance, for state governments to say, look, we will utilize the bodies of waters we have around these dams to incentivize fisheries if we are having difficulties with fishing trawlers on the high seas? That's one leg of it. But from your experience, why is it that a number of state governments appear to pay lip service or otherwise tepid about agriculture and food production?
Thank you very much. I think we started very well in this country. There is nothing that we are talking about failures now that had not worked in this country. The attempt by government to bring energy, power into the farms had been there. Tractor companies, farm equipment companies, they are there. They are all moribund. They are lying waste. We don't know where the bottom completely fell off us. Technology centers by the Ministry of Agriculture are there. They are dead. Their infrastructure for intervention, like the one in Cheddar that we just talked about, it's there. The average onion farmer does not even know that it exists. The states, they turn around in terms of administration. And the fact that governance had been more in terms of personality rather than impact is what has brought us here. Even when we've seen some administration committed to agriculture, the next one may never talk about it. So if you are within a program, the turnaround is that the farmers who have participated in that ongoing program are stranded as soon as there is another administration in the state. The state governments are the ones that have the populace. And they are the ones that have custody of the land. The federal government had been leading in so many ways. And for a good number of states that had had buy-in, things have worked. And some had been so good to start their own. But going to the water bodies in Nigeria, thank God the Water Resources Ministry had them. And they are in good numbers, from the south to the north. And the essence of any water body is to provide public water, water for agriculture, that is irrigation, and then fisheries. So if you do your arithmetic consecutively, you can even see that we've done that in the past. You could go into the Kadawa and see, we saw fishermen, a lot of tilapia. The large size were in Kadawa. Tika Dam, people could fish. All water bodies down to the south were being seeded by with fingerlings. And people could harvest from what we call the wild in those dams. Why is it that the average Nigerian has refused to get involved and we are more interested in picking from the street? It will not happen. The sense of productivity that had existed before is gone. That people are seeing the source of productivity there and people are sitting and folding their arms. And we've not been encouraged. If you say you are empowering a youth, is it to make them politicians? It is to make them productive Nigerians. So if we make youth productive Nigerians, those things lying around carelessly, the tractors, the abandoned dams, the culture of productivity will return so that we won't be crying over this spilled milk because you don't pick them. But to rejig yourself, your system, that we have what it takes to become a country that is self-sufficient. If you go to the airport here, on an average day, vegetables from Jalingo come by overland, seedless, cucumber, and so on, every day. And Nigerians in Abuja are buying them. And who are the managers of this? They are Nigerians. The state government put it in place. So we can do them. Let us return to the basics. And where these things have failed, reawaken them. And the people who are in charge, don't tell government what people want to just hear, but what will move us to higher grounds of agricultural productivity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Negedu. Actually, you have always raised a very pertinent point, as to why we are where we are today with respect to food pricing in Nigeria, namely the issue of cost of production, and of course the inability of some state governors to key into federal government policy on agriculture, which is very, very germane to, of course, to increase in food production in Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, I have a specific question for Kabiru Ibrahim, who is the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, with respect to the issue of changing the narrative, with respect to, of course, engaging ourselves with a new production approach in agriculture. Stay with us. We'll be back very shortly. Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, I'd like you to speak on the issue of changing the course of history of production method in Nigeria. Dr. Kengu talked about the greenhouse method. Are your members prepared to adopt new methodologies in approaching farming in the country?
Oh, definitely. The greenhouses, or the concept of greenhouse is all over. So many people are embarking on it. In fact, recently on NTA, you showed Malam Alu Farms in Jigawa. He's a very good member of AFAN, and he's got greenhouses where he produces vegetables. And many other small farmers are also taken into it. There are many, many ways we can keep agriculture on the front burner, by walking the talk. As I said, it is quite possible to encourage people to do agriculture there around. There is also another concept. We can also do vertical farming. That is, because of this insecurity and all that, we should be able to even work in the urban areas to produce food, especially vegetables, that they climb. We can do it vertically. And of course, mechanization. There are many people that should be encouraged to produce, even local implements that have got a lot of mechanical advantage. There are many people who are selling these things. Like I do zero grazing with my cattle on the farm, and I have so many implements that I buy from the local fabricators that will mince corn stalk, corn cobs, and all that. And I compound my own feed, and my cattle are safe. I am keeping them in one place. And there are many improvisations also in feed for poultry and all that we are doing. So it's a matter of getting focused and treating agriculture as a business. And many improvisations are possible. In fact, the whole world got to where it is, and all those people with success stories got to where they are because they are focused in what to do to improve the production. In Nigeria, we can do the same. A number of our graduates now live in school, have no other jobs. So, and the incentive that the government is giving, and the fact that agriculture is now in the front burner should encourage them to embrace agriculture and do it with gusto. And a lot of innovation and improvisation should come in, and good science and technology is also there. And in AFAN, we are even encouraging people to embrace biotechnology. because it's the fastest way of even getting out of poverty, and we can maximize our food production. And then good science has shown that there may not even be any, there is even no nexus between disease and GM. So a lot of these things are happening. And then again, there is something that is very, very good that we are doing now. We just signed an MOA, a memorandum of agreement with Afrideco. We are trying to generate a data of all the farmers in Nigeria, looking at all of the tendencies and competencies. And we are going to do it for free. AFAN is doing it for free because there is the money that is provided by the World Bank. $433 million is sitting there for NIMSI to capture about 150 million people in Nigeria, including farmers.
Okay.
And this will come free to AFAN. So a lot of things will be done to make sure that Nigeria is self-sufficient and we are able to play in AFTA.
All right. Thank you very much, Architect Kabiru. Back to the studios here in Abuja. Dr. Emeka Okengo. Now, how do we transition from farming to food production? Because obviously these are strategic objectives that we will need to realize, and ultimately we won't get into the trap of escalating food prices, notwithstanding other circumstances, whether the Naira is devalued or whether you're having insurgents banging across different farmlands in the country. Who should be the driver of this transition from farming to food production?
Thank you.
Because sometimes in the mentality of some Nigerians, people let government do it. What can the private sector on its own do, and what kind of incentives will it require?
Thank you. I'd like to rephrase the question a little bit, sir. How do we transit from mechanized agriculture and research-supported agriculture to the subsistence agriculture we have now? And I give you two instances, one which you're very familiar with. You can tell the story better than I can. NIFO. I'm very close to 60 now. I used to go to my father's gate in Nsukka to take milk from the milkman from the university ranch. University of Nigeria Nsukka in the 70s had greenhouses, had produced what we call the yellow pepper, what we call the Nsukka pepper, which is only it's only in Nsukka you can find it. And it's also going out of fashion now because nobody is replicating. NIFO, where you come from, where it's in your area, if you were in NIFO in the 70s, you could actually take pictures, send to people, and they thought you were from America or you were in America. So it is how did we all get it wrong? And I think we all got it wrong because we eliminated research against administration. What do I mean? Hitherto, NIFO, Tobacco Research Institute, Potato Research Institute were all independent structures that operated independently until you got the Federal Ministry of Agriculture that had no land, okay, that had no resources, that had no reach, okay, that had no conventions or covenants with all these subnationals and research institutes to now start making policies for everybody to buy into. Whereas you now have a government that runs a two-tier of administration. State governments make their own laws, okay, on agricultural policies. There is no meeting point and there is no synergy. So the first thing we should do is to be able to look at the legal frameworks and then do something that is holistic. This is from the government angle. From the private sector, I, as a company, I have MOUs with NIPRID. I started with NIPRID, and NIPRID will surprise you. Why NIPRID? Because we found out that NIPRID had discovered phyto extracts that could reverse diabetes, that could reverse sickle cell. But they were not commercializing the production. And then when we got into that research, you found out that there were only two ingredients that they needed to be able to start getting their volumes: scent leaf and bitter leaf. Nobody was planting commercially. We went to NAPRI in ABU's area. This is my resource center. Got into an MOU with NAPRI. Found out that NAPRI had done 30 years of research on forage that could grow in 18 locations in Nigeria. And this is a product that you require 500,000 metric tons on a daily basis for the 24 million cattle you have in Nigeria. We don't have any farm, not even a demonstration farm, for forage in Nigeria. Now, this is at our level. We went to Ministry of Science and Technology. So, okay, fine, let's get into a relationship with you so that we can get into how we can start populating our dams. We have an MOU with the Ministry of Science and Technology. But again, because of retapism, because of administrative logjams, because somebody comes in and then it's not his priority, this is taking about 6 or 7 years. But we are not giving up. Now, why aren't we giving up? Because I grew up in a research environment. I'd seen the bulls in Nsukka. If you are ever, any Igbo man who is listening to me can attest to it. We are not under any weight less than 600 kg. And I'm talking about the 70s. So until we are able to get maybe a presidential room, war room if you may, because we are at a crisis point now, where we are going to be saying to ourselves, in the first place, I was part of NATIP in Federal Ministry of Agriculture when they were trying to do their new policy. And the first question I asked is, how many people are we planning to feed? What volume of tomato do we need to be self-sufficient in Nigeria? What amount of land do we need to be able to produce it, either by land or rain-fed or commercial or whatever? Now, if you don't have these statistics, you are going to be singing to the choir. Now, somebody is talking about members, farmers. I know there are about 1 or 2 factions of AFAN, okay? And then you go to say, can you give me the statistics of your members? Who are these farmers? I had done something for Imo State when Ihedioha was governor. I was invited to be part of what it is they're doing. And I said, okay, why don't you invite all these whole farmers? And when they come into this meeting room, please can they list their name and then tell you where their farm is and the size of that farm? Against 2,000 people, you know, that listed names, all of them were listing as cooperatives. So if you don't, yes.
Is there too much political farming or political agriculture rather than economic
this
agriculture?
Is what that's the story I'm telling.
We have to stop you here. You know, he has raised a number of issues.
Political agriculture versus economic agriculture.
He has even gone into some complexities, you know, with respect to food production. It does appear that we have not started in the first place because there are many things to consider before we go into real food production, as he rightly mentioned. Let's go to Abiodun Oladoku, Senior Manager, Commodity Prices. What is the mechanism for commodity prices management? You know, we are in a crisis situation at the moment. Is there any way your good office can cushion the effect of a hike in the price of food at the moment? Briefly.
Okay. For us at the exchange, what is very fundamental is for the farmers to appreciate first and foremost that there is a market where there's going to be price discovery. And, you know, these farmers are expected to take their commodities to accredited warehouses. See, very important is the issue of storage infrastructure. Dr. Emeka mentioned the fact that the national storage capacity is about 1.2 million metric tons. We need to increase this storage capacity, very, very important, because if we don't have a place where there will be professional commodity inventory management, we're going to run into trouble, where these commodities can be kept, the quality secure, and all of that. So farmers should be aware of that, and they need to move to their commodity to the storage infrastructure. Also, you know, at the exchange level, we always ensure that the inflation does not really hit hard, because we at the start of a trading session, we will always make reference to the previous day's price and have a band, a price range that the commodity price should not go above or fall below, to be able to moderate, to ensure that these commodities are, you know, the rate at which the price is moving is bearable within the specified range. This is very, very important. So our farmers, they must patronize the exchange. You know, the infrastructure, we are continuing to increase our capacity to store, in addition to the federal government storage capacity. So also, I'd like to speak briefly also on the side of government. It is important for government to encourage people to invest in agricultural production. Yes, the private sector, they are going to do a lot in driving the sector. And if you increase our production, maybe talk about the yield per hectare. You know, let me take for instance a commodity like maize. Using the traditional method, you barely get 2 tons per hectare. But when you do good farm management practices, good agricultural practices, you can increase to 4, 6. Even there are jurisdictions where they make as much as 8 metric tons per hectare. You know, that's very, very important. And somebody mentioned about vertical farming. There's a farm in Switzerland, where you maybe let me just give an instance of an hectare of land. You can have layers like a multiple story building, and all the structure is just meant for farming alone, and it's not just, it's vertical in all the levels, all the layers. That's very important. If you do that, the issue of the farmer either clashes and whatnot, whether people are feeling insecure to go to their farms, will have been addressed, because from that small piece or size of land, you're able to do a lot from that angle.
Well, Mr. Abiodun Oladoto, how does the commodities exchange affect the price of food? And in the immediate term, now that we are seeing the escalation, is there any intervention likely to come from the commodities exchange?
Yeah, at the exchange, there's something we call auction trading platform. We have a situation, like we're all aware, that there's the strategic greens reserve of federal government. And the purpose of that auction platform is to be able to sell to the people, and the platform is the platform, or the avenue by which this goes to the people. So when we have the food already secured in the strategic reserve, you know, and people are able to access it through the exchange because of the transparency that it involves, you can be sure that this will help to bring down the prices of the Shylock middlemen and all whatnot. They are cut off from the system. People have direct access to buy from this reserve. So that is one way by which the exchange can help to regulate or to moderate the price movement.
Is this being done at the moment? Is it being done at the moment?
Yeah, like at the moment, we have some teething issues, and the fact of the matter is that government is putting its attention, especially the ongoing intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria, to restructure the exchange and you know, bring it to where it's supposed to be.
All right, we'd like to thank you, Abiodun, for your contribution this morning. Abiodun Oladoto, Senior Manager, Commodity Prices with the Nigeria Commodity Exchange Market. Thank you. Dr. Emeka Okengu, who raised a number of teething issues that should be addressed in this country if you have to have a food sufficiency in the country. Dr. Okengu, thank you as always for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
And we'd like to also appreciate the President of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, who reached us via Zoom from Katsina. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you.
All right, and Dr. Samuel Negedu, National Coordinator, Agricultural Foundation of Nigeria. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, so that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. The program is back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, as we always advise, to take care of yourself. I am Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirian Umayo. Do have a wonderful day.